Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this sleety, snowy afternoon. My name is Maggie Danforth. I am one of the registered dietitians on the My Way to Health team. Thank you so much for joining us today. With us, we've got Lisa Tigges. She's our lead dietitian. She will be manning the chat. So if you have any questions, any concerns while we're going through our presentation, please don't hesitate to pop in the chat and let us know. We have Rashonda Thornton. She is in our kitchen, our demo kitchen right now. So she will be presenting that aspect of the workshop today. And yeah, so we just wanted to thank you again for joining us. Oh, we've got a furry friend on today. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for muting. Yeah, even though it's always good to have four-legged friends around. Yeah, so thank you for joining our wellness workshop brought to you by HR's Wellness Connection. This year, we're going to be offering our wellness workshops quarterly. We've decided to vary the times and days of weeks in hopes to make it more accessible to more WashU employees. So you can save the date for our other wellness workshops on our website. We're also pretty active on our Microsoft Teams channel. So just so you all know, this session is being recorded so that we can post it on our Teams channel for other folks that aren't able to make it to this live demo and workshop. You can also find today's recipes and handouts to complement today's session there. We will include the link in the chat. You're looking for that. So I'm just going to do a little overview for those of you who aren't familiar with our program. We are a team of registered dietitians that deliver wellness programming for WashU employees. The foundation of My Way to Health is our individual wellness consultations. And these are one-on-one consultations. You meet with a dietitian to discuss your wellness goals. For those of you who haven't participated yet, WashU benefits eligible employees have access up to 4 sessions per year. And it's all free of charge. So we also offer a more intensive weight management program that is a year in length and has enrollment every 4 months. You meet with a dietitian on a weekly basis for 4 months. The next 4 months are a weekly group session type setup. And then the last 4 months of the program are monthly large group sessions with individualized email support as well. So if you're interested, please look at our website. Our orientations will start late April for our May cohort in 2022. So yeah, now that we have introduced ourselves, I kind of wanted to take a moment to see and ask you guys a question. I've got a little bit of a spoiler alert about this presentation, nutrition and numbers and improving your biometric results. We're going to be talking about salt substitutions. And so I wanted to know, what is your favorite go-to herb or spice when cooking? So if you've got a favorite, if you could add it to the chat. I'll go first. Maybe I'm not first. Oh, I see them coming in. Garlic. I was going to say garlic powder. Heck yes, we've got paprika, cilantro. All right. Yeah, we were just talking before the presentation about cilantro. Who's team cilantro and who is team it tastes like soap, I think is what I've heard. You say it. Yeah, basil and Italian seasoning. Yes. Cilantro. We've got team cilantro. Garlic, curry, lemon pepper. Very nice. Yes, garlic. Garlic has great antimicrobial properties. So it's a wonderful thing. Got another team cilantro. Okay, good to see. Love to see it. All right. Thanks everyone for sharing. Yeah, good stuff. I'm glad I'm not the only one on Team Cilantro. Okay, so we're going to start by talking about the why, right? Why we check our biometric numbers, why we check our blood pressure, our blood glucose levels, our cholesterol levels, height or weight, and our BMI. I feel like if we don't know the why, then we're less likely to follow through with things. So abnormalities in our glucose levels, blood pressure, and cholesterol impact one of our body's most vital structures, our blood vessels. Blood vessels carry oxygen to our organs and help keep us alive. It makes sense then that our bodies work better with clear, flexible, elastic blood vessels that can withstand the stress of our day-to-day lives. With consistently high blood sugar, blood pressure, and or cholesterol, our arteries can become hard, inflexible, and clogged. Not ideal. So this can lead to chronic diseases such as diabetes, heart, kidney, and liver disease. So in this case, knowledge is power. When you know about certain abnormalities in your biometrics, you are able to make lifestyle changes to prevent chronic issues. So as you can see in parentheses there, I have and why we don't. So sometimes checking our health numbers can be scary. If we have family history of certain chronic diseases that we really want to avoid, or perhaps we've been ashamed or shamed or not necessarily met with compassion when it comes to our abnormal levels, it makes sense that getting them checked again probably doesn't fall very high on the priority list, right? So I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that, that knowing your numbers can be scary if you have, some of that, if you're bringing some of that with you, but that you deserve respect regardless of what those numbers are, and that you also deserve an opportunity to make changes and prevent chronic illness. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure, we start the presentation knowing that sometimes it can be scary, but yeah, you deserve the knowledge and the power to change. So yeah. So know your numbers. So I wanted to give you guys a couple ways to find out what your numbers are and how to find help in understanding your results, okay? So we have a United Healthcare Employee Nurse Advocate named Dr. Jill Geraltz, and you can find her on the WashU website, the Wellness Connection website. You can also email her directly there, Jill_Geraltz@uhc.com. She can help you with a variety of things, help you interpret your biometric results, manage ongoing health conditions in between doctor's appointments, and also just connect you to resources that either United Healthcare has or other resources that WashU has. So definitely don't be a stranger if that sounds like it would be something that would serve you. We're also excited about our annual health screenings. So those are going to be on-site screenings, and you can find out information about when those occur they'll probably start in springtime, but to have the most accurate information, check the website. Also, of course, My Way to Health, that's the dietitians here. So we are able to get your weight, BMI, and waist circumference in an in-person session to kind of help you with those biometric screening results. And of course, we're able to help you with specific lifestyle recommendations to help gain control of some of those numbers. So yeah. So I'm going to start by educating just a little bit about a couple of the biometric results that you get when you go to biometric screenings or your annual physical with your doctor, one of them being cholesterol, okay? So as you can see, we've got good and bad cholesterol. We've got LDL, which is considered bad cholesterol. And as you can look in the photo or in the picture on the PowerPoint, you can see that LDL is building up in the artery. That's meant to represent an artery. And then you can see the HDL, which is kind of free flowing, right? It's flowing through the blood vessel, not really sticking to the LDL. So LDL is responsible and contributes to fatty buildups in the arteries, as shown. That causes a narrowing, of course, which increases the risk for heart attack, stroke, and peripheral artery disease. Okay. So then we've got HDL, and it's considered the good cholesterol because it can break down LDL. So HDL can go around and start knocking some of these yellow LDLs out and help lower our bad cholesterol and also decrease our risk for that buildup in our arteries, which is really interesting. And it makes sense then why HDL is the good guy, right, in the story. So we also have triglycerides. They store energy, excess energy from our diet. So while most cholesterol issues can be familial and hereditary, also our lifestyle impacts our biometrics as well. So triglycerides, if we're eating an excess of sugar or saturated fat, or I've seen folks drinking a lot of Mountain Dew, and they've had to be hospitalized for their triglyceride levels. And I'm not laughing, but it really goes to show that our diet can play a role in those types of levels. And we don't want to build up of triglycerides. So I've got a table here of what a normal level would be for all of these guys. And we'll talk more about lifestyle changes later on in the presentation. So stay tuned. So the next thing that gets tested are your blood sugars. We've got one of the most popular tests done is the hemoglobin A1C. That measures your average blood glucose level for 2 to 3 months. So I come from healthcare. I used to educate a lot on hemoglobin A1C and eating a carb consistent diet, of course. And folks would tell me, oh, I've been really following a carb consistent diet, but their A1C, since it showed 2 to 3 months of information, that didn't always align. So that's kind of why the A1C is really beneficial, because it can paint more of a picture than your fasting blood glucose can, even though both of them, should be tested just to see where you're at. So elevated blood sugar is a sign that the body isn't using insulin effectively. It can also mean that the body doesn't have enough insulin. So insulin and glucose work together. They're buddies. We want them to be buddies because insulin can help insulin's job is to help bring sugar into cells so that we can use it for energy, which is what we want to do. So if you can see that image where we have insulin being sensitive, right, where insulin is able to help bring sugar into the cell on the left. And then on the right, we have insulin resistant or insulin insensitive, right? So insulin is not able to do its job. And so sugar is building up in the bloodstream because insulin isn't able to bring it into the cell, okay? So over time, consistently high blood sugar can cause diabetes, kidney disease, eye, blood vessel, and nerve damage because it causes divots in our blood vessels to where that LDL cholesterol really likes to hang out. So doctors will help folks manage their blood sugars using insulin, medication, and lifestyle changes, depending on what's best for the patient. Next, we have blood pressure. You can see here the normal, elevated, high, and very high levels for blood pressure. Having high blood pressure causes our heart to work harder to transport blood to the rest of our body. It increases your risk of heart disease, stroke, kidney disease, and heart failure. The reason blood pressure is called the silent killer is because you could have high blood pressure and not even realize it. So that is why we like to emphasize, know your numbers, right? Because we want you alive. We want you doing things you can do to help, lower your risk for heart attack and things like that. So if you do have high blood pressure, it's great to get it checked by your doctor often, or even have a cuff at home. So it can often be controlled by medicine, But so much can be changed with just lifestyle intervention, which is good, right? If you know, if you're up for it, right? It does take change though. So the next thing I wanted to just address is salt sensitivity. There's some debate about whether salt really does impact blood pressure. And the answer is it can, right? Some of us are more sensitive to salt than others. Generally, Americans eat way too much salt. So it's probably a good idea for most folks to lower their salt intake to some degree. The general recommendations are about 1,500 to 2,300 milligrams per day. So salt obviously affects people differently. Some people consume it without having any effect, but for others who are salt sensitive, even a slight increase in salt intake can wreak havoc on the kidneys' ability to regulate fluid, and it can increase our blood pressure. So we've got risk factors. As we age, we become more salt sensitive. So folks who are middle-aged or elderly, overweight, obesity, those are all risk factors. But again, it affirms the importance of getting that checked regularly. So one more little anecdote from my healthcare days. I would go into hospital rooms and I would bring my salt sensitivity or my low sodium diet education. And the first thing folks would say is, I don't salt my food. And that's great. That is so great. But we all need to remember that most of our salt intake comes from prepackaged foods. It's a food preservative. So it's in a lot of our processed foods and restaurants. So if we are going out to eat much, we get a lot of salt. It's kind of why it tastes so good to go out to eat. There's a lot of salt in that food. So 70% of our intake comes from the processed food and restaurant foods. Just something to keep in mind. So yeah, it's time to switch to Rashonda for our entree demonstration, our Nourish Bowls. So I'm going to stop sharing here.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Does the screen get bigger or this is all we have? This is the size it's going to stay, so I can, or can I make it bigger? Okay, all right. Well, hopefully everyone can see me in this box. Want to say hello to everyone this afternoon. Hope you guys are staying safe if you're at home or if you are here on campus. My name is Rashonda Thornton, and I am a part of My Way Health team. New to the team, but not new as a dietitian. So there were some great points that Maggie talked about when she spoke about the different ways that we have to be considerate of our intake of both cholesterol, as far as our fats, sodium, and our sugars when it comes to our biometric readings, and recognize the importance of how about choosing foods that helps to minimize, or helps to manage, or actually helps to lower those numbers. So we decided, how can we kill three birds with one stone, right? We want to lower those levels, sodium levels intake, we want to lower our sugar intake, and we want to lower our fat intake. So how can we create meals that are tasty, affordable, and use ingredients that helps increase our health? And so I'm sure, before I get started, I'm sure you guys have all seen this beautiful, colorful plate. That's the My Plate. You've seen it around, and we all understand that what a balanced meal looks like is making sure you have your grains, your fruits and vegetables, and your lean protein source on your plate, mostly at all times if you can. But sometimes it can be difficult to kind of fit all those things on your plate. That's where creativity comes into play. So we know definitely we need to make sure we have our grains. That's where we get our high fiber, cholesterol lowering foods from. We get our lean proteins, lean, let me emphasize, and that's where we make sure we're minimizing those high cholesterol, those high fatty sources, and make sure you get our fruits and vegetables. That's where the fiber is coming from. And again, that contributes to lowering your sugar and lowering your cholesterol levels. So how are we going to now create this into a meal? That's, again, taste has a lot to do with us choosing certain foods. So we are going to put together a Southwest Nourish Bowl. And we'll be sending the recipe over to everyone so they can try it on their own. So feel free to explore and create your own Nourish Bowl as well. So we're going to start off, we talked about high fiber foods. And we talked about how it increases your HDL levels and lowers your LDL levels, as well as your sugar. So when we're thinking about what kind of grain we want to bring in, we want to bring in something that's going to help to counter both. And most of the time it's going to be more like a brown rice, or like the quinoa, couscous, there's wheat berry, there's so many different varieties of different grains. But for today we're going to use brown rice. So the recipe calls for about a half a cup of brown rice. That's about a serving size. So I did some work in the kitchen this morning to prepare for this event. So I'm going to just kind of show you my combination of my Nourish Bowl. So here's my empty Nourish Bowl, but I'm going to start off with that grain. And so we're going to use the brown rice, about half a cup. Half a cup is about the size of a hockey puck. That's about half the size that you want to have. So sometimes it's hard to measure, but think about the size of a hockey puck. That's about what size you want to have per serving. So now, as we're thinking about my plate, so we have the grains taken care of. The next layer is, let's bring in those vegetables. That's high fiber. So what we have is cut up, diced, and roasted red and green peppers. We're going to get our fiber from our vegetables, as well as our minerals and vitamins. And what I've done, we were kind of jumping in the 22 era of air frying. So we have actually made a lot of our meals today with the air fryer. I wish I had more time to show you what we did, but I roasted air fried these vegetables, and I seasoned them with a little bit of taco seasoning. And this is the seasoning that we use, but you notice it's taco seasoning, but it's low sodium taco seasoning. I guarantee you, once you put these good flavors together, you won't know the difference between low sodium and regular sodium when it comes to taste. So I'm going to add on these roasted vegetables. So now I'm adding my second component for my plate, which is my vegetables. Not only that, I'm going to give the vegetables a little bit more diversity. So we also, what calls for in the recipe is corn. Corn is a high fiber, starchy vegetable as well. And we're going to give it a Southwest fling to it. So we're adding diced tomatoes with chilies in it, green chilies in it. And these are roasted as well. So we're going to add our roasted corn and our roasted diced bell green pepper chilies on here. And right now we got a good combination of our whole grains and our fiber-filled vegetables. But we cannot forget the main star of all of this, and that's a lean protein source. Now, definitely, if you're animal-based protein eater, you want to go for your lean meats. And that's where it can be really tricky, because we can bring in a protein source, but if it's fatty, then it contributes to the high cholesterol level we were just talking about. So instead, we got chicken breast. We cubed it up, spiced it up with the low sodium taco seasoning in the air fryer. Again, we use this air fryer multiple ways this morning. And I'm just going to top it. I'm going to top it with the lean protein source. So you want about 4 ounces. That's the size of your palm, or the size of a deck of cards that you're going to add onto it. And then, so right now we have a pretty good mixture. And we noticed that we haven't really had to put a lot of sodium in it, because we had fresh vegetables. We brought in a whole grain rice, and we brought in a chicken that's seasoned with low sodium. So we actually have really conquered some of those probabilities of having some of those higher numbers. And I'm going to show you some of the corn, some of the ingredients that we got. We got corn, and as you see, it's low sodium. We particularly got the low sodium corn, and we got green chilies. They don't really come with a lot of sodium, so it's okay to go ahead and get that can. And obviously our fresh vegetables that we got. So the only thing left for this Nourish Bowl is just really to top it off with some cilantro. So if you guys are thinking about making a meal like this gives you a variety of different vegetables, different nice deep flavors. And you can feel confident that this type of meal can be tasty and not contribute to increasing those numbers. So hoping that when you guys get the resources, you'll be able to make your own variety. And feel free to share it when we post it on the wellness platform. And so we also have one more that we're going to do as a dessert in a few moments, but I'm going to let Maggie take on again and give you guys some more information about our health, our lifestyle change that will also contribute to lowering our biometric readings on our numbers. So Maggie, are you ready to tell us the rest?
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'm going to put it on mute so you can take over again.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Rashonda. All righty, folks. Thank you so much, Rashonda. Rashonda and I got together and decided that the Nourish Bowls were great because they're great backup meals, right? You can make the grain, you can make the protein, you can kind of make those things in advance. And really all you have to do is change the seasoning to make it something nourishing. So it's a great, backup meal type situation. And some of the recipes you'll see aren't necessarily backup. They are something to plan for, and they're delicious. So I really hope you enjoy those recipes. They're some of my favorite ways to eat. Some lifestyle modifications. All right. So this probably isn't going to be news to most of you, right? But one of the biggest ways across the board to improve your biometric levels is weight loss, a 5 to 10% reduction of total body weight. Okay. So, a lot of folks have really big weight loss goals. Some folks do, right? And that's fine. We always want to support people in their goals. And it's really important to realize that 5 to 10% seems more attainable, right? We want to set small goals to achieve bigger goals and realize that these attainable goals have a huge impact on your health, right? So just a couple notes, all of these lifestyle modifications help across the board. For blood pressure, our blood pressure will increase as weight increases. So we also are more apt to have sleep apnea when we carry more weight, and that can raise blood pressure. So that's one reason to, maintain a healthy weight for you. Weight loss is one of the most effective lifestyle changes for controlling the blood pressure, because with each 2 pounds that you lose, your blood pressure can be decreased by 1 millimeter. So 1 point, I guess, is one way to think of it. A weight loss of 10 to 15 pounds could reduce your LDL, or bad cholesterol, by 5 points. And then people in one large study reduced their risk of developing diabetes by almost 60% after losing approximately 7% of their body weight with changes in diet and exercise. So it's kind of like, is this a chicken or the egg situation, right? Does the improvement come from the weight loss or from the improved lifestyle changes? And the bottom line is both can be true. You're likely going to lose weight when making these changes, right? So the next thing is increasing physical activity. Increasing physical activity is another modification that has shown improvements across the board. And even with things like mental health and stress reduction, which can't hurt, right? Especially if we're talking about blood pressure and stress. So moderate physical activity can help raise our HDL, or the good cholesterol. So we recommend, with your doctor's okay, to work up to at least 30 minutes exercise 5 times per week. The general, recommendation for how intense it should be is that you should be able to still hold a conversation, but not be able to sing. So I actually tried that out the other day because I thought that was an interesting way to put it. And it's true, there is a definite difference between talking and singing. I will say, back in the day when I got my dog, he's a wild dog. He needs a lot of exercise. And I was really cut out for that. I decided I would just go ahead and train for a marathon because we needed to run a lot, and I, didn't have much else going on. So we started training, and I got my biometrics done before I started training. And then the next year after I had trained, and my HDL had went up by 15 points. Obviously that's a lot. But it just goes to show how much I was running, which I will never do again. But also that, physical activity, can really make an impact. It can also make you more sensitive to your insulin, more sensitive, which can help lower your blood sugar. So we want our hormones to be sensitive, not only our insulin, but also our hunger and fullness cues like ghrelin and leptin. And physical activity can help make our hormones more sensitive that way. Of course, our DASH diet and MyPlate. So the MyPlate is what Rashonda took us through, and also the dietary approaches to stop hypertension, which is basically the MyPlate diet plus the emphasis on sodium, right? So limiting your sodium intake to 1,500 to 2,300 milligrams per day. The MyPlate really emphasizing a good amount of fruits and vegetables on your plate, the lean protein, avoiding saturated fat. Saturated fat should be a very small amount of fat that we have in our daily intake of fat, as opposed to heart healthy fats, which come from oils like avocado, olive oil, nuts, seeds. So making sure we have a great variety of those fats can help our bodies decrease the inflammation that is kind of part of the foundation of chronic disease. The next note is sleep hygiene. Sleep has definitely become a more popular topic over the past several years. So sleep hygiene, we can define it really basically as making sure you have a good sleep regimen, right? So going to sleep around the same time every night, waking up around the same time every morning. And then also, what are you doing for the hour or two before sleep, and hopefully in the morning as well. But that time before you go to bed, really making sure you're setting yourself up for naturally going to sleep. Now, I've also, for overachievers out there like myself, it can be stressful. We can take it too far with the sleep hygiene. It's natural for us to not always have a perfect night's sleep. I want to also say that because, if we aren't having a great night's sleep and then we start stressing about not having a great night's sleep, that's not the definition of health either, right? So really just making room for being a human, but that most of the time you're setting yourself up for a good night's sleep. And then the last one here is mindfulness. So this really goes to, reducing your blood pressure. Your body doesn't recognize a difference between stress from exercise versus stress from day-to-day life. Those stressors, they feel the same in our body. So really making sure, we want to choose stress that we want to have, right? And stress is okay. It's part of life. And just learning how to manage it can help lower our blood pressure and things like that. So Headspace or an Insight Timer app for meditation, if you're interested in that. We've got mindfulness programs with Meg. She's a wellness consultant. She's got great programs. If you look at the Wellness Connection website, that's wonderful. Or you could do a basic breathing exercise where you count 1 for inhaling, 2 for exhale, and do that until you get to 10. And that's just a mindful breathing exercise that can help ground you in the moment. So we like tiny ways to transition into a healthy lifestyle a day. We love little goals, and I've got my little star sheet here because for those of you that have ever had an individual wellness consultation, we talk about small goals, right? Achieving, really boosting our confidence, right? So one of the first things, start somewhere, meet yourself where you are today. So out of sight, out of mind. What I mean by that is make sure your home and work environment support your wellness vision. Put the less nutrient dense foods on the top shelf out of sight. Or if that's not a food you can really have at the house, don't buy it or gift it to someone. People get creative, all kinds of ways, right? To keep it out of sight, out of mind. On the flip side, get the healthier foods or more nutrient dense foods in front of your face and really easy to eat. I know for me, I love to peel my oranges in advance because that will make me eat them a lot faster, right? Making sure, your carrots and celery are cut up, your produce is washed and ready to go. I know that was my mom did that growing up, and now I'm like, wow, she was very brilliant because that helps us, right? Making recipe substitutions where you can. So for example, I'm thinking of Super Bowl. We posted a couple Super Bowl recipes this past weekend. One was subbing Greek yogurt for sour cream, or for one of the recipes. That's an example. Trying to choose lower fat items, and when you're baking, using applesauce as a substitution. And in your handouts, we should have some examples of recipe substitutions to help cut calories, but really trying to back down on our saturated fat and sugar intake. Aim to have 2 to 3 different colors of food on your plate. So when you look at your plate, get in the practice of being like, wow, I see only brown, right? I've got turkey and potatoes and trying to think of another brown something. So try to see, wow, this really needs some green, right? Or how can I get some blue? What's so interesting is that all these different colors from our food, they all have different antioxidants, and those all help in disease prevention. It's like nature kind of knows how to take care of us, right? So go figure, right? So that kind of leads me to the next one. Add 1 cup of berries to your day. And I put that in there with intention because study after study has shown something about berries, right? Whether it be strawberries or blueberries, having a cup or a serving of those every day can help lower your risk of diabetes and heart disease. So I think of it as like a medicine. Like I got to get my, berries in, even though they're delicious, right? They're much tastier than a medicine would be. So I highly recommend, that being a goal to work toward. Another small, it could be a big one for some, is making a plan on your days off. How are you going to eat this week, right? Plan 2 or 3 meals in advance and see what that feels like, right? To like really take charge of your meal plan. And then the last one here is find 10 minutes within your usual routine to move, get some physical activity in, or mindfully breathe, right? I find that a lot of folks, it's acceptable for self-care to set aside some time for physical activity. Physical activity can be a window into self-care. And so dedicating even 10 minutes is better than nothing. So we always need to start somewhere. And on that note, our final demonstration of the dessert, I'm going to switch it back to Rashonda.
All right. Wow, Maggie, I really appreciate you just laying it out, telling us your story and how it affected your levels. Like it just really makes an impact when we don't really know how much we can control our health by, the nutrition piece and the exercise, physical fitness piece, and like how you saw such a difference when you just start using, exercising more. So it's a lot of power to wellness when it comes to exercise, nutrition, and even just like the mindfulness piece. And then, I do want to remind those I was so excited to show you my Southwest Nourish Bowl. I don't want to leave out anyone that has a plant-based diet. And one of the questions is, okay, what if I don't eat chicken? Or what if I don't eat beef? Or a great substitution, or a couple of great substitutions are black beans that goes with the theme of Southwest bowls. Or you can do tofu. You can cube the tofu, season it up with the low sodium taco seasoning, and then put it on it as if it was chicken. So there's multiple ways we can do this for whatever type of diet that you have. And so before we start talking about our dessert, which is a unique way of saying it, I'm going to talk about some of the myths that sometimes we find when it comes to lower sodium foods. Sometimes, like Maggie said, she's had people that she's worked with that said they are not eating any sodium in their food, so they shouldn't eat sodium. Sodium is a bad thing. And, to an extent, we do need to monitor how much sodium we're having, but we do need some amount of sodium, the appropriate amount of sodium in our daily eating. I mean, sodium is what controls our blood pressure, which helps to contribute to our body movement. So we do want to make sure we don't just totally exit out sodium. And then, of course, the next thing is, well, I take away sodium, I take away taste. Well, that's a myth, I would say, relatively, because there are a lot of creative ways we can use herbs, spices. You can use herbs and spices as much as you want. They will not hurt you. They will only help you. They have a lot of health components to it. Or even thinking about how we use minced garlic a lot of times to pull out flavors. I like to use lemon a lot. I squeeze over my salads, over my fishes, and just the lemon just kind of enhances those flavors. So there are a multitude of ways that we can season our foods and make it welcoming without having to have so much sodium to it. Who's out there use sea salt? I know that's kind of a new thing, or like maybe the Himalayan sea salt. And that's another option when it comes to seasoning, because the question is, what the sea salt or Himalayan salt has less sodium than regular salt. Well, it's known that for table salt, it's known that sea salt, Himalayan salt, it has about 40% less sodium. So sometimes that may be a good thing to switch over or transition over to from table salt when it comes to seasoning your foods. And we can't forget, like Maggie said in the beginning of the presentation, we get a lot of sodium from just processed, boxed, jarred, canned foods. So anytime we go out to eat for dinner, we do not know the impact of how much sodium that is being cooked in some of those foods. But outside of just restaurant eating and processed food, what about some other foods that sodium may sneak on us? One is, think about some other food products like cheese. Cheese has a good amount of sodium in it. If you take a look at your bread products, you flip it over, you will see that there's a spectrum of sodium in the bread products. So even thinking about some of our poultry, like we have here this chicken, but if you do, like, let's say deli meat poultry, or if you have sliced meat, they will have sodium in it because what keeps it moist. So it's more so like, how are you making sure you're being creative and making meals that you're lowering your sodium, but also recognize other places where sodium may pop up. So now we're going to focus on the fun part. Well, one of the fun parts of today, and that is our dessert. So of course, now we think dessert. First thing we think about dessert is, okay, it's gonna be sugar involved. It's gonna be something that's gonna like raise my blood pressure probably, or something that has a lot of fat in it. We think those components are needed to make something taste tasty. Well, we decided to give it a different spin today. I'm not sure, if you guys have really explored granola, but most of the time you think of granola, you're thinking chocolate and M&Ms and cinnamon and oats. You're thinking that's like the taste or the most common flavors you take with granola. Well, granola has many more faces, and I want to introduce you to one that we are making today. It's actually a savory granola, and we're going to put in some spices like rosemary. It's called a sweet and savory granola. I'm going to show you the ingredients that we put in it, and then I'm going to show you kind of like the ready-made version so you can see what it looks like. But I do want to encourage you to try this at home. I guarantee you that you will like it. I made it, and it's like, okay, now I know some things I can make at home that taste better than the store-bought version. So what you want to do first is, let's talk about, we talked about today, knowing your numbers. We want to make sure we're still staying in the theme of whole grains. So one of the ingredients for this recipe is rolled oats. So whether it's, a canister of rolled oats, or you have like a bag of like homemade rolled oats, let's bring in the rolled oats. It takes about a cup and a half. And then it also calls for puffed cereal. Now, when I say puffed cereal, first thing I think is like sugar smacks back in the day when we were kids. Well, they actually have puffed cereal, which is puffed grains that don't have any type of sweetening in it, but it's made for obviously syrup if we want to, but we can also actually add it to our granola. So we're going to put the puffed cereal in there. So now those are our grains. One other type of fiber that we sometimes don't think about is flaxseed. So flaxseed, we know it has high in fiber, it's a healthy fat, and it contributes obviously with all the other elements that we've been talking about as far as cholesterol and our sugar levels. And so we're gonna put, the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of flaxseed. I'm doing a very truncated version. So you get the recipe again on the Wellness Connection board. So along with that, let's think about some other health-centered foods that we can bring in. Fruit, we talked about fruit. Now this time we're gonna bring in fruit. We're gonna bring in golden raisins. I'm not sure if you got ladies and gentlemen, ever had golden raisins. They're pretty big, and they're bigger than the regular raisin. Actually have a really unique taste to them. They're pretty delightful. But we're going to bring that in and give us a little bit of natural sweetness. And another good thing about dried fruit is that, yes, they do come with a little bit condensed amount of sweetness. It's a natural sweetness, but it also comes with a lot of fiber as well. So again, there are some positive benefits that come with these ingredients. We're going to bring in healthy fat. Thinking about our heart health now. We're going to bring in walnuts. We know the walnuts have the health benefits as well. So it brings in no flavor, no salt, to just regular old plain walnuts. And some other type of spice. We're talking about how can we flavor our foods without a lot of sodium? Well, this recipe only calls for like 1/4 of a teaspoon of sodium, the entirety of it. The rest of the ways we're flavoring it, we're going to flavor it with rosemary. So we're going to bring in an herb, nice herb that we've seen that we can grow in our own homes. We're going to bring in rosemary, and it also calls for chili powder. So now we got a little bit of heat and a little bit of like a herb taste. And we're gonna also put, along with the chili powder, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add regular pepper. So give it a little bit more kick, okay? A little bit of that with it. So the recipe calls first to just stir all of these ingredients together. So I'm just gonna stir all the natural whole grains, healthy fats. That's how I look at it. It's yum, yum, good tasting and good for you type of ingredients. And then next thing is, how are we gonna make this into bars? Typically, most granolas that you may see is laced with some sort of like condensed sugar, some type of syrup that kind of coheses and give it that flavor. But this recipe calls for a combination of honey and avocado oil. So you just mix these two together and you steam it on top of the stove and get it to a boil. And then it breaks down, you stir it. And then once you stir it, you let it cool for about 30 seconds and then you just add it on into your mixture. And another cool thing about this one is that once you add it, you actually place inside of a cookie sheet underneath parchment paper, and you don't bake it. You actually put it in the refrigerator. You can put it in the refrigerator for 2 hours, or you can put it in the freezer for 30 minutes. So you can make this a quick recipe. But this is the finished product that we have here. So just to see what it looks like once we have it all stirred up and patted down, I have my parchment paper and I just kind of spread it out and I just laid it across the cookie sheet, or not the cookie sheet, the glassware. And then I put it in the freezer. I had a short amount of time and it came out to nice, perfectly squared, gooey, because we have the avocado oil granola. And so when I tasted it, it was a very nice balance of that sweetness that we get from the honey. I know that the oil is not a fatty hydrogenated oil, it's avocado oil. We got the oil from the walnuts, we got the healthy fats going on, and it wasn't too overpowering with the rosemary and with the pepper and the chili powder. So I do want to encourage you guys to, think differently about granola. Just think about maybe this one, we can dry, not dry, but let it kind of harden on its own. You can turn it into something you put on top of your yogurt. You can make it into cereal. I think it'd be something fun for the family, give the kiddos another type of way of tasting granola. But at the end of the day, when it comes to our health, we are bringing in it is possible to bring in foods that are tasty and healthy and enjoyable at the same time. So I hope you try me out on this and let me know what you think. I think we have a few moments now. We wanted to make sure that, we are not just being the one talking, but we wanted to see if you guys had any questions. So I'm going to turn keep my camera on, but turn my mute on so that Mag, I believe you're going to be the one that's going to talk through, maybe answer a question that we may have. I think that'd be a great opportunity to do so.
Sure. Thank you, Rashonda.
Yeah.
I wish we could share them with folks. You'll have to make them yourself at home. All right. So, any questions? You can put your questions in the chat, or you can unmute for questions or add to the chat. Yep. Thank you, Lisa. We'll just give it a couple minutes. Oh, you're so welcome, Deborah. Thank you for being here. This was so much fun. I'm so glad. I'm newer to the My Way to Health group, and this was a blast. I know we all love these, so thanks for being here. I hate to repeat, but could you go over sodium alternatives again? Yes. So good sodium alternatives, lemon juice can really make things taste salty. That's probably one of the closer tastes to sodium. Actually, in your packet for the handouts, I have salt substitutes for different types of meats and proteins. So if we are able to pull that up right now. The handouts are in the Microsoft Teams channel. Let me I'm going to stop sharing and perhaps I can pull those up. Oh, and we will also be emailing them out in the next 1 to 2 days. No problem, Patrick. Glad to see you here. Yeah, so Mrs. Dash, right? Dash, dietary approaches to stop hypertension. That's an old favorite. Just, being aware of, trying to choose anything that is a powder rather than a salt. So garlic powder instead of garlic salt. Anything that says salt means there's sodium in there. Potassium-based spices or herbs and, things you can get at the grocery store. Sometimes you need to be careful with that too, right? Because we don't want to overdo it on potassium either. It is a balance that our bodies do with those electrolytes. Patrick, I don't know about accent. I'm going to have to look at that. I'll have to look that up. Okay, Lisa says it has MSG, so it still has some sodium in it. Thank you. Any other questions? Think so? All right. Thank you, Valerie. Yes. I'm glad these were helpful. So glad to hear that. All righty, folks. Well, if there's no other questions, of course, we're on the Microsoft Teams channel. We are on our emails. You can always reach out. You can sign up for an individual session, but hopefully we see you at the next wellness workshop. And that will be taking place in May. So the list and the dates and times are on the website that Lisa has posted in the chat. So yeah, all righty. You're so welcome. Thank you, everybody.